Welcome to the first of a series of Python tutorials. We are going to work with Python on EC2, Amazon's virtual machines. Most of this, if not all of this, will be perfectly fine, whether you're in a Unix environment, a Linux environment of some sort, Mac, Windows, you name it, because this is really going to focus on Python. Now, the variations will be, right now, we're going to talk about a couple of installation type steps. And then there may be some things that are going to look a little different to you as we get further along, because we're going to use Python, we're going to use Django, and depending on your browsers and things like that, you may see some differences. The IDE I'm using is Cloud9, as you may be able to see up here. I'm going to use this all the way through. It allows me to work on this machine and keep it a pretty clean environment. So, but you can use, Eclipse, since this is Eclipse based. You could also use things like Visual Studio Code and there are plenty of other good IDEs out there. This just happens to be one I'm going to use because it works for me. We're going to start off with, this is a clean instance. This was built just for Cloud9 to do some development. So this is a generic, small Amazon Linux environment. It has, as we can see right now, we can do Python-V, and we're going to see that we have Python 3.8.6 installed. That's what we're going to be working with until we decide otherwise, essentially. And for now, we're going to go ahead and pull a couple of extra pieces in that will help us along the way. This is really just, it's not going to bother us too much today, but I want to go ahead and get these out of the way. In order to do so, we're going to install one of these extra packages for us. Okay, so we enter this simple command. You'll see this in the notes. This is it right here, Amazon Linux Extras. We install this. We get this thing built in, and basically it just throws in some useful information for us. We are going to, at some point, as you will see, we don't have MySQL installed yet. We're going to actually install that later as our database, but for now, we're going to stick to just getting started on some Python. So let's start with, we'll make a folder. We're just going to call this, we'll just call this tutorial. We'll go with that for now. And in there, we will create our first file. And this will be our first Python scripts. We're going to do let's just do it. Yeah, we'll do it from here. We're going to call it hello.py. Py is the standard extension for a Python file. And we're just going to do for now, we're just going to do I'm going to have to, since I'm in VI, I'm going to do print hello world. This is your most basic Python you can ever get. And I will write it. And now to run it, I'm just going to do Python 3, which is the version I've got. So I'm going to run that, and I'm just going to pass it the file. And it's going to tell me, which is perfect because that allows me to get into here now. I'm going to open it up this way. And the way you do a print is you actually do it. Notice that we have, actually, let's do it this way. We're going to make it a string. You have to use parentheses in your print. And we're going to say end of program, because we're going to end up using this for a while. So that's all we've got right now. This is just a print statement. You put strings, you can single or double quote. So let's do that just to show you. So we're going to see end of program twice. It's going to look exactly the same. So we're going to save it. We're going to flip back over here. We're going to run it, and boom. See, there's no difference in those, even though we had a single and a double quote. So we'll keep the double quote one just for grins. And now we've got our most basic. We've done some output. Well, let's actually declare a variable. So let's call this, call it myOutput. And we're going to do, this is a cool program. And so now, same thing. We're going to output, we're going to print that out. And so again, notice there's no semicolons or anything like that. We will deal with some indentation. We'll talk about that a little later, but right now, everything's here. If you do this, that's probably important to note. If you decide to put any indentation here, this will not work. So if you look at it this way, we indent that thing out. Unexpected indent. So make sure that we do it like this for now. Whoops. If I don't accidentally cut it. And so now we've declared this variable myOutput, and then we print it, and then we print end of program. And there you go. This is a cool program, end of program. Now, one of the things we can do is we can do formats. So we can do and see format, and let's say so now what we're doing is we can put these braces in, and those allow us to do replacements via format. So this is going to be very useful when we start doing more complicated things. It's not always a static string that we want to push out. So we do this. Whoops. So now let's talk about formatting. So we can take something here, which is a pretty straightforward kind of output. But now let's do something a little more complicated. So now, today is we're going to do this. Let's say, and so now we're going to allow ourselves to enter something here. So this is going to be, so we're going to create this variable called daytype, and we're going to say it's sunny. And now we can pass that into our string. This is where double quotes do matter. We're going to use our double quotes. We can use this bracket, and then we can format. And we're going to see that it says, today is a sunny day. If we change that over and we say it's a rainy day, same thing. We get today is a rainy day. So we're able to add, okay, and we can do multiples of these. So we could do, let's say a rainy or actually be a something and something day. So day type, let's call it day type 2. And we'll call it cold. We're going to do day type 2. So now we're going to pass these, and we're going to see it's going to be a rainy and cold day. See, rainy and cold day. So we are able to do some basic formatting actually moderately quickly. Again, very simply with Python. Now it can get much more complicated. We can do numbers, and we can do things like that. So let's jump into that. And in so doing, let's do, we talked about the indentation. So we're going to do something that will be a loop, and we're going to actually show the indentation. Now, typically what happens is you'll have some sort of a command. And then if there's things that are subs, then they're going to be underneath it. So you could do things like, we'll get a little more into this, but if true, and this is true. And then it's going to come back to end of program. So there is no end if or anything like that. And you see that, we run it. I'm sorry, it's a capital T for true in the Python world. And so we see this is true. Now let's change that from an if. We're going to change that to a for loop, or a counting loop, as you would call it. The first thing we're going to do is a walk through an array. This is something, arrays are very simple. Basically, Also, everything in a Python almost is an array. So let's just do, we're going to call myArray. And we're going to define this, and it's going to be equal to, let's just do it like this. We're going to start by doing A, B, and C. So that's my array. Then I'm going to do for letter in my array. And I'm going to print letter is, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a little format. And it's going to be letter. And when I switch back over to here, we're going to see letters A, B, and C. Now, what do we do here? So we created an array. And it has 3 items in it, A, B, and C. And then what we're doing is we're walking through my array, and we're going to assign this to letter, each of the end items. So I could switch this over. I could say for item in array, and then I'm going to print this out. And notice this is going to keep looping here because this is indented. So now if I change that to, I moved over. If I change that to item, because now my array that my variable that I'm declaring for my array is item. I still get A, B, and C. Now, if I want to do a counting loop, I'm going to do, let's do RNG is a range, which equals range 5. Oops, sorry, it's not that, and it's not a capital. So now I could do for index in range, and then I'm just going to print it. And so note that it does 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our range by default starts with a 0. If I wanted it to start with a 5, start with a 1, then I can give it a start and an end. So now if I do my range, it starts, but notice that it stops 1 below our top end. So if I do from 1 to 5, it's actually going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to end at 5. If I don't put 1 at all, it starts at 0. If I want to do 5 to 10, I've got to do +1 on the second one, and we'll see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, I could also do this range. Let's just do it this way. Let's do it again. And in this case, I can do the range directly. So let's do 10. And notice I declare the variable, but I can declare it again because it's fallen out of scope. And boom, I'm off running. So there's 0 through 9. And that's how we can get some for loops in there. So we can do them across an array. We can do for item in an array where it does each of these, or we can have a numeric range where it's going to do whatever we declare in range. So this is it's a little easier than what we may run into with, for example, Java or C or some of those where normally you're going to do a loop that's something like, you have to declare it, then you have to say it's less than some number, and then you have to do the increment, and then you got to do that little thing. You don't have to worry about that here. Very, very straightforward. Now, before we wrap this one up, let's do a function. So I'm going to define my function. I'm going to send it a value. And notice I can put this anywhere. I could put this at any point before I call it. And in my function, I'm just going to say print except for I'm going to do value times 2. And then here, let's go to the one where I do 0 to 10. I'm actually going to do print, and I'm going to call my function. I'm going to send it index. So let's actually move this closer. So we've declared, notice that same thing, we start all the way to the left. We use def to define a function. We give it this, we give it a parameter, which we're going to call value. We have our starting thing, basically, which is a colon. And then we start doing some stuff within it. Now notice that we've moved back here, since the index has gone all the way back to the left, that ends the function. We don't have to do an end or anything like that. So if we run this thing, we can see here where we get this 0, none, 2, none, none. And so if we look at that, what did we do there? Well, the problem is that we did a print and we were printing what it returned. But note that it returned none. It didn't return anything, even though we didn't say anything. Now let's say, actually, let's leave that there. And now let's return success. And now what you're going to see is that it prints it and it returns success. So it prints out success. We didn't have to put, as you would see in some of the other places, we didn't have to put a return type. We didn't have to do anything like that. I could change this now to, let's return an array, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now, and I'm not printing it. Note, I'm not printing the return value. So now I get every value, 0 times 2, 1 times 2, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, 4 times 2, and it's doing my output. Now, if I want to go back and actually print that, the note that I can print that array. It's very intelligent in how it's going to do such things. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. So today we learned, number one, we learned about output. We learned about variables. In Python, we learned about arrays. We learned about formatting strings. And of course, we've added here, well, let's start with first, we did our for loops. And we learned defining functions. Whoop. So there you go. We've got some basics together. We can write all kinds of neat little programs here. I think for your assignment for this one around, if you want to spend a few more minutes, you should be able to do this fairly quickly. And that will just simply be, well, we'll do A, B, and C. So first, verify your Python version. You should be able to do this wherever you are. So I can either do Python, so 3-v, or the command will be Python-v. Python 3 is usually for the newer Python 3 version. Sometimes you will have Python 2 and 3 sitting on your machine, where Python without the 3 will give you the older version. Sometimes both will give you the same version, the newer version. Depends a little bit. We definitely want Python 3. The next thing in your assignment is create a Python program to output your name and then print an array of your favorite foods. Let's give that one a shot. See how that goes. You'll see notes in the text around this posting, and we will see you